We cannot see the comments because our screen is too far away. So please excuse that we're doing this, okay? Thank you. Let's see what this for. Oh, what this going to do? Okay. Okay. So first of all, we're going to approve the minutes from the August 17th meeting. Again, these are already on the internet. Members of the commission, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, it's been moved in second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, they're approved. We'll start now with public testimony on the agenda items that we're going to consider today. So, Kat Brady.
Morning, commissioners and community. I'm Kat Brady from Community Alliance on Prisons. Today is the first day of autumn, and it is also World Gratitude Day. And I would like to express the community's gratitude to the commission for actually encouraging us to participate. We also noticed that the HCR 23 task force, the parole task force, is also being recorded, and the community can access those recordings or actually sit in on the meeting. Although we are not allowed to speak, we can definitely listen in and submit comments to the commission, and we are very, very, very grateful for that. So thank you so much, commissioners.
Thank you, Kat. George, can you get that off the screen? This meeting is being live streamed. Oh, okay. Any other comments on today's agenda? Please raise your hand. Okay, when someone says guest, so I don't know what your name is, but whoever is listed as guest, you can go next. And you are muted.
Oh, they're not raising their hand. That's just the mouse.
Oh, that's the mouse. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So if you can get the mouse hand out of the way. Anybody else have comments? Okay, we'll get started now with the meeting. First of all, for the Department of Public Safety, we asked that Tommy Johnson give us an update, and especially the transition to corrections and rehabilitation, which begins January 1st.
Okay, so can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as Martha indicated, we will be redesignated from the Department of Public Safety to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation effective 1 January. A new department has already been formed called the Department of Law Enforcement. So they've already stood up, got their key staff in place. Between now and the end of this year, all of the Deputy Sheriff's Division, all of the Narcotics Enforcement Unit and the Internal Affairs Unit will all transition over to become a Department of Law Enforcement. Public Safety will be redesignated to Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We will not have any law enforcement entities part of the department. That would allow us to concentrate on corrections and rehabilitation. And with that comes a complete paradigm shift. Internally, we're reviewing our policies and procedures now to make the change. We're looking at staff uniform patches have to be changed. Vehicles have to be repatched up as well with the new seal, the new department, the new DCR. In addition to that, we're changing our mission statement to reflect the paradigm shift in the department along with our vision. We're going to put that up on the website. Our website will change considerably, not just in the way you see it. It will be more user-friendly. We'll try to put more content on the website with respect to different reports, different information. So the website is more open, more user-friendly. And you should see a change with respect to hopefully the color scheme of our website, so it's not so militaristic, for lack of a better term. Okay. We already ordered that all of the old chain gang type uniforms at Halawa Correctional Facility be switched out to regular uniforms. So HCI is working with the warden, Shannon Clooney, there to do that. And so we're going to standardize the inmate uniforms with respect to the color, what classification that means across the board. So if you're wearing orange at Halava, it would be the same classification. If you're at Women's, if you're at Maui Community Correctional Center, that'd be a lot easier, I think. In addition to that, we are, let me go over OCCC first. We had asked for $15 million for this year and $10 million next year to do the planning and design. We did not get anything from the legislature this year, but we did get the $10 million beginning 1 July next year. The governor originally agreed to release, I asked him for the $15 million from the $200 million pot that he had available to him. He originally agreed to give public safety $7.5 million, but in meeting with the director of Department of Agriculture, it was discovered that they had requested for the last 2 years money for planning and design to move the animal quarantine facility, but they did not get that money. And so we cannot proceed with OCCC until they proceed in moving. So I agreed to a reduced amount of $4 million to public safety for planning and design, $4.5 million, and $3 million for Sharon Hurd, the director of Ag, to ask the governor to draw down so they can do planning and design for the movement of the animal quarantine facility. Now, both of these are two separate projects, to be honest. I think it probably should have been one large project, and this should have been done in phases. I think that would have been easier, but since it's two separate projects, it kind of throws a snag in. So we're continuing with the planning and design. There is a forum coming up soon, a symposium that we hope everybody decides to come to. So we aren't at the point yet where we just still have renderings. There's no set footprint, if you will, what the facility will look like. Director of BNF, Louis Salaberry, and I briefed the Senate President, the WAM Chair, Senator Kadani, Senator Ravella, and other legislators last week at the KCCC on where we stand on the OCCC project and the money they provided us the year before to relocate KCCC to another location. For those of you who don't know, the Kauai Community Correctional Center is right across from a golf course. It's got these Iniki-style temporary housing units up front near the road. And so it's also in a flood inundation zone. So every time it rains hard, the back of the facility floods out, and so does the front to some degree. So we looked at 9 different parcels of land where it could go. We settled on a recommendation of 2 of the 9. Both of them are owned by the state. One is owned by DLNR, and one is owned by OHA. They're on the same side of the road. They're just farther up the road at a higher elevation. So they would be outside of the flood inundation zone, and they wouldn't be affected. The facility wouldn't be affected by DOT's plan in the next, I think it's next 3 to 5 years, to widen that road, which would take the housing out on the front, right? So more to come on that. That project is in its infancy. We only got the money for planning and design last year. We got $3 million last year, this year for beginning 1 July, and 2,000 next year, for a total of $5 million for planning and design to move the facility. It does need to be moved because it floods out all the time, and it's old. If some of you ever been there, the dormitories up front were temporary housing after Hurricane Iniki. We still have those and using those there, and other parts of the facility are just as old. There's one newer part of the facility, but again, the facility, we've outgrown our space there, for lack of a better term. And we do need a newer facility that's more efficiently laid out. And so the parcels of land we looked at, we're on about 9.8 acres. I could be a little bit wrong, could be off there. So both of the pieces of land we looked at, one is about 6.8 acres, another is about 14 acres. So it's still comparable, and it would not cost the state. We could get the land via executive order with respect to DLNR. OHA, I'm not sure how that would work. We'd have to talk to them if that was the final say. The good thing is that both of those pieces of land are close enough that we would still be able to plug into the current water and sewer infrastructure underground at the KCCC now without having to dig new, which would cost tens of millions of dollars. So that's where we are. But again, that's in its infancy. So more to come on that. That's probably going to change quite a bit. I just signed a new MOU to expand the culinary arts program with KCC to include the Waialva Correctional Facility. So they were at Women's, now they're going to be at to extend it at Waialva. On the 21st, yesterday we met with Social Administration, finally got them to do an inspection of Halava. That was our project to look at being able to help inmates obtain replacement Social Security cards. So we passed the inspection, so we got tentative approval to work with the Social Security Administration to help inmates who are American-born citizens obtain replacement Social Security cards at all Hawaii facilities. For those that are in Arizona, we would help them either when they go through Halava coming in, if they needed it, or when they're coming back through Halava, going toward like work furlough. The only thing that we have to do now is provide them with a copy of our policy so they can look at it and have their attorneys look at it. They will come back to us with some comments on recommendations for maybe changing or things they want us to take a look at. And we would then turn that over to our Deputy Attorney General to take a look at. And we would have, once we get the policy in place, then they would sign the MOU. So that's a big step in the right direction to try to help inmates with the have the documentation they need. We already have a program in place to help inmates get a birth certificate. And I just found out that finally the city and county is in the process of buying the machines they need to upgrade their ID card machines. And so therefore, once they do that, we can buy the same machines because the machines have to talk. And so we'll buy the satellite machines, and we already have one up for a civil ID card at Halava. The plan is to put one at the Women's Community Correctional Center at Maui HCCC, which will help service Kulani. And then we would look at KCCC last because it's so small. So that would handle three of the major forms of ID. That would handle the civil ID card, which is what's needed a lot, the replacement Social Security card, and then we already have a program to help them get the birth certificates. But I want to be clear that people who don't have a Social Security card who will be applying initially are those who are born overseas on military installations, or those who are legal aliens in the United States legally. There's a different process for them that they would have to work directly with the Social Security Administration. But our plan is to provide that information packet to them so that they do have the information they need to apply. Those that are applying initially for a first Social Security card, they will have to go to a local Social Security Administration office. There's no way around that. And speaking with the folks from the Social Security Administration.
I do have one question, Tommy,
Sure.
about the equipment to print the state IDs.
Yeah.
Will that be, I know you were mentioning a lot of facilities, but will it be at all the Oahu facilities, or will we continue to have to transport people from Waialva to Halava to get cards?
Well, we hadn't planned on putting one at Waialva as a priority because we wanted to get the larger facilities first. So everyone at Waialva has to go through either Halava or OCCC. So there will be, and so we're clear. Those machines, they don't print ID cards. What they do is they allow us to communicate electronically and take the photo, take the fingerprints, and send it electronically along with the completed application to the city and county, and back it up with the hard copy. And then they will review the documents. If there's any hiccups with the documents, they'll let us know. We'll work with them. But once the ID card is approved, the city and county prints it up, and then we have to go get it. We sign for it. We put it as part of the offender's property, and they get it when they get out.
That means it may be that an employee from the department goes down to the city and county maybe once a week and picks up a whole bunch of them at one time.
Right. We will drop them off in batches, and we'll pick them up in batches. That's correct.
Okay, and you'll make sure the ID follows the offender as they move from one facility to another.
Yes.
So
Yes.
given to them at Halava and they're released from someplace else. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
So we have a checklist and a document for them to sign stating whether they want us to help them get the ID card or not. If they say no, we're still going to circle back every 6 months or so to see if they change their mind, because we can't force them to do it. But we strongly recommend that they get as many forms of identification as possible. And so we're having the case managers talk to them and tell them, hey, you need an ID card, you need a birth certificate, you need a Social Security card. These are what businesses need in order to put you on payroll, or to at least verify you say who you are.
Hey, Tommy, do you have a timeline for the implementation of these various items?
Well, for the Social Security Administration, we have to send them the policy. That's gonna take a few more months. But at least we got the verbal okay from them. That was the big hurdle, the inspection. Because the attorneys are gonna have to look at the policy and then the MOA back and forth. For the ID card machines, now that we know what the city is gonna buy, I just talked to Monica Lortz, our reentry coordination officer, and told her, get with the city and county. They made the decision, get the specs on the machines, because we have the money sitting. We're gonna purchase the machines. We could not piggyback on their purchase order, unfortunately. We did try. So as soon as we get the machines, and I would say give us a few months on the machines, you can put on the agenda and ask for an update every month. I can try to let you know where we are on that, because it has taken us a long time. The problem the city and county had was they went through 3 directors for the Department of Community Services there. And also the person they had point of contact has cancer, so he was in and out. And so that delayed us about 2 years, unfortunately. As far as the, one thing I didn't mention was, and I apologize, is, we have an associate degree program at Halava. We just graduated 7 or 8 about a month and a half ago. So we're working with the vice,
Chancellor.
I'm sorry, we're working with Chancellor Paddington at Chaminade and the Vice Provost Marshal, Professor Janet Davidson. So they obtained funding to expand from Halava to now we're going to expand the associate degree program to women's and Wayava as well.
And when will that begin?
Well, they got approved for the grant. So I would say probably January would be the earliest they could start. Maybe as late as March, but I'll stay on top of that and I'll let you guys know. But that is good because if someone gets out of a correctional facility with an associate's degree, they have a much better chance of finding employment and success, along with the documents they need to transition.
Yeah, as long as they have the documents too. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Tommy?
I have a question.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's all I can think about. Yeah, Ted, yes.
Yeah, I have a few questions actually. And this is going back to the transition to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I'll be real frank about this, Tommy. Listening to the changes that are in process, they seem to be cosmetic in nature. I think you have a golden opportunity to move the department to a different space, which I believe is badly needed. And I say this not only from my observations, but keeping in mind that one of the purposes of this commission is to help the state transition from a punitive to a rehabilitative model of corrections. But I think some of my observations about the department and things that need to be reviewed very carefully, and I think will be needed to be implemented in order for the new department to become truly a Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And these are my views, and some of the other commissioners may agree with me, and I think some of the public who are joining in may also agree with me. But I think some of your basic systems and processes are broken. And the reason I say this is I look at evidence that's been presented to us. For example, at a recent commission meeting, it was reported that the parole board held hearings in Arizona for inmates who are seeking a grant of parole. These hearings should be held in Hawaii at the furlough site. I don't understand why we have so many inmates in Arizona whose next step from Arizona would be parole into the community. That's a very, very difficult transition for anyone to make. I think a complete review needs to be done about the process that gets inmates from Arizona, from intake at Halava to a next facility and then back home again through a thoughtful transition process. Another point of evidence is continue to see inmates going to Arizona, but while Waiava and Kulani remain empty. And I think that a careful study needs to be made as to why this is happening and what needs to be done to fix it. Another point is, there's a high level of deaths in Hawaii's correctional facilities, and we don't have statistics yet, but it seems, and I understand a lot of some of the deaths are among elderly inmates, but we recently had I read a story about a killing at OCCC of an inmate who was a probation violator, who was mentally ill and was brought back on charges of probation violation. Why is things like this happening? I know probation is out of your jurisdiction, but I think it behooves you to ask what's going on in the community with community mental health that causes someone who cannot comply with his probation conditions, perhaps because of his mental illness, to be thrown into jail. And that was a case with Joey O'Malley. And I think I hate to say this, Tommy, you don't have control over parole and probation, but you're responsible. You have custody over the body, and he who holds the body owns the problem. So I think the department needs to do a careful look at issues like this that have been brought up for actually a few years now. Before you move to simply transfer the existing structures and systems and processes of PSD corrections into a new department, because if that's what you do, you're simply going to be putting lipstick on a pig. And that's my comment.
Okay.
Tommy, I have another comment about the classification system. That I know that the last validation you had was a couple of years ago. I think it was Janet Davidson who did that. But as you know, in the past, I've worked a lot with the classification system. And one place where I failed, where I'm hoping you're going to be able to succeed, is creating a list of people in order of who should be moving into the what beds at what time. And we should be able to do that electronically. We did not achieve it in the past, but being that you are, my understanding is you folks are looking at a new electronic information system. Is that correct?
Yeah, two different things though. So for the classification system, we have Janet Davidson looking at it now. Her first report is due in January. Right now, I think our classification system is time-driven, but I think it should be event-driven, meaning if someone demonstrates their ability to follow the rules, behavior, stay out of trouble, then their classification, they should be looked at for reclass sooner. Right now, if you do a certain level of violation, you don't get a reclass for 18 months or 2 years or whatever. So I think what Janet is doing is she suspects, as I do, that we're probably overclassifying people.
Well, I think you are
and so
too.
part of her report will cover that. And if we are, then we need to take a look at our classification system, how we initially assess people, and then how do we reassess them, which again, should be event-driven and not just time-driven. So we are taking a look at that. Her first report is due in December or January. So I can keep the commission up to date on that.
What I'm talking about is an interface between the classification system, when they have write-ups and stuff, system program and stuff like that, so that you're able to generate like once a week or once a month. The list is, these are the people that are next eligible to move into beds at Waiava or Kulani. These are the ones that are ready to move into a furlough situation, because we really left it up in the past to, the social workers, and those that were very diligent about it were the best at getting people moving forward, where others were not diligent at all about it. So inmates got stuck in different places. So that's why I'm asking that you consider, not consider, that you actually do it. have a classification system that's automated and integrates with the other systems so we can
Well,
create that.
So right now, Martha, we do have, I get a weekly, what's called OCCC wait list. So it's for the people who qualify for movement to the work furlough programs, where they are, what date they qualified, and what the status of the transfer packet is. So we do have that system in place right now. And I always go back to Heather Kimura in our inmate classification office and ask questions. Why haven't these people moved if the transfer packets were completed like 30 days ago? And so what I found out more often than not, it was the receiving facility not yet ready for them. So we've been working with the receiving facility, which is mainly the work furlough programs, to say, hey, clear the bed space, get these guys moved. We don't want to keep guys upstream longer than they should. Because once they qualify, it behooves us to move them as quickly as possible to that appropriate setting for that classification level.
And so it has to be system-wide. It just can't be that OCCC, you're looking at people getting ready for furlough. We
No.
are looking at Halava, people are ready to move into a less secure facility
Yeah.
and eventually get to furlough. So I'm talking about a
Yeah,
system-wide.
Martha, it is system-wide. I just use OCCC because that's the biggest, they get the most folks coming in. So if you want, I'll forward you the latest report I got from Heather with the spreadsheets, and you can take a look at it yourself. And if you have questions, you can get back to me. Is that okay?
For me, the proof in the pudding is that we have lots of empty beds at Halava, I mean, at KCCC, no, I'm sorry, at Kulani and Waiava, we have a lot of empty beds.
We
So
do
obviously
have,
working.
we do have empty beds there, but what I think what the commission has to understand is that in order for the inmates to go there, they have to qualify to be at minimum security. And even though we have inmates in Arizona, minimum security, their TPD dates are 10 or 15 years out already. So
Well-
we are doing a better job of moving inmates downstream. In fact, I even ordered that no Class C, nonviolent Class C felon should be sent to Arizona. So the numbers in Arizona originally years ago was up to 2,400. It's now less than 900. So we're slowly making that progress.
Again, my concern is though we are not moving people through the system correctly. There are general concepts about how your population should be broken down, and not more than about 50% should be in secure beds. You can put them in other beds. So the fact that we have so many empty beds is still a great concern. Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments from the commissioners concerning this discussion, and any questions for Tommy?
I have just one more of a comment than a question, based on your discussion about lists of inmates. I think the other thing the department really has to do is to look at people, look at inmates, and ask, what does it take to qualify them to move to a lesser security facility? What programs can we do? What behavioral changes do we have to affect so they can go from Arizona or Halava to Waiava at the earliest possible opportunity? I think these are the kinds of thinking that's really going to be needed in order to become a true Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Just a comment.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mike?
Tommy, I hope this is on the agenda, but reduction of minimums, right? That is up to the parole board, Tommy?
That's correct.
And the reduction of minimums, when I was on the parole board, struck me, we didn't spend the time on it because we were setting the minimums and maybe shouldn't have, and we're going to address that next month. But when there is a request, I think it should be an open due process type hearing. And I'm not asking you necessarily for your thoughts, but a heads up there, because if you got these TPDs so far out, 10, 20, however many years they are, and the guy or the gal is doing well, let's reduce it. Do you disagree with that?
Well, you got to look at the nature of the offense and degree of loss to person and property. Because here's the issue that I'm playing devil's advocate, okay? If you look at the nature of the offense, degree of loss to person and property, and those salient static things don't change. So what the offender should be able to demonstrate to the parole board is that he or she has changed in the way of not just waiting around to take programs that become available, but take the initiative and get on the work line. Try to pay off the restitution. If restitution's owed, try to do other programs while they wait and show the parole board that they are doing something, that they are changing their lives, and they're not necessarily who they were when they committed the crime, or that they've changed in a positive way. I can tell you though, this parole board has approved 19.1% of the ROM applications, and that is very high considering previous parole boards may have approved only 7 to 13 or 12%.
Good.
Any other comments from the? I see some comments coming up from the audience. And one of the things that Carolyn brought up was about training staff who work with the inmates. I'm sorry, I lost that a bit. So can we ask about that, Tommy? What type of training and ongoing training do you provide for the social service and ACO staff to help inmates move through the system more timely?
Well, the ACO staff is not there to help the inmates through the system. The case managers are. So the ACOs are there to provide, security, and the case managers are there to provide the counseling and redirection and make sure the person is on track with programming. And so the case managers, all the staff are required to have annual type training, which is things like first aid, ACO's use of force, weapons. There is no, unfortunately, for any of the fields we have, there's no real professional development type training for employees in public safety. There is a supervisor development training. There's the corrections familiarization training. I mean, basically that's it. There's no training for that next generation of correctional leaders. So as a result, there's no bench. And a lot of it has to do with the way the promotion system is set up for UPW up to lieutenant. So all we can do with the staff is try to get them the training that's required. But I agree that we need to have some kind of training modules for them to provide better opportunities for both professional and personal growth. So the DEP-A, Melanie Martin, has started a wellness program and working with the Office of Wellness and DHERD. So we're put on certain events, but I think we do need to develop some type of training program for professional development and personal growth as well. And I think while DHERD offers classes every 6 months from January to June and July to December, and their Skill Pass provides conferences here or there, I think we lack, and I would say most departments probably lack some type of strategic annual training program for their staff.
First of all, I have to say I strongly disagree with you about that. ACOs are only responsible for security. They are the people that our offenders have more contact with every single day. They should be encouraging, they should be directing, they should be supporting the inmates in their period of time that they're with us. When it comes to training, there used to be many opportunities for staff to participate in training on the national level. What I'm not sure of, Tommy, after COVID, whether the Department of Justice still offers as many of those opportunities, because we did not pay for them. The Fed sent us to these training opportunities.
The only training opportunities we see lately, they haven't ramped up as before. There's a lot of grant opportunities that we get from the feds, but as far as training opportunities, no. Every once in a while, there's a solicitation for technical assistance that's free, that comes from the BJA, and we try to apply for those that when we can. But I don't think there's any huge effort by the feds to provide training to correctional jurisdictions unless I'm missing something. I have contacted the NIC and ACA, and I've even contacted the CLA, Correctional Leadership Association, for assistance with different issues, if you will. We just entered into a contract with the ACA to review our intake assessment process, because we suspect and it's off the subject, so I'm sorry, I apologize, but because we suspect we may be missing some folks with mental health issues coming in, and so we need to identify those folks up front. So we're looking at our intake assessment process, and since ACA is certified, nationally certified, and they're the experts. We think they'll help us a great deal with that effort.
Tommy, I think you can also take the opportunity of your training staff that is under the DEP of sending them to other jurisdictions and learning from them and bringing it back home.
Yeah, that's a good
what I'm
idea.
concerned about. We don't have enough contact with other programs to help us develop our programs.
Yep, I don't disagree. I can take a look at that. I'll talk to Melanie.
Okay, anything else from the commissioners?
I'm sorry, Martha. I have one comment about this whole issue of ACO training. I think the model for the ACO was developed, I believe, in the 1970s, and back then the facility warden could assign the ACOs where he or she felt it was best. This all changed in the late 1990s. I don't mean to go over the history extensively, but in the late 1990s, the ACOs got to choose the post and the watch that they're going to be working on, and it all changed. And I think the situation now is all the ACO 3s, for example, get paid the same, but some choose to work in non-contact positions. Others choose to work where they will have interactions with inmates. And I think these are two different types of employees that we're dealing with, but they're all lumped together in this same bargaining unit. I think it's time to really take a look at what is the ACO's job and start to distinguish between ACOs who have the people skills and can deal with inmates versus ACOs who are good at sitting in a tower at night and make sure there's no movement on the outside. It'll take time. It'll take extensive discussions and negotiations with the union, but I think it has to start. So I think that's another major cultural shift that has to be done in order for the department to transform itself. That's my comment.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
No.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the new jail, but I feel you covered that already.
I have some questions about that.
Sure.
Okay. Tommy, I read in, I believe, Civil Beat recently that the revised cost for the new OCCC is $900 million.
That is correct. Yes.
And today you mentioned about another potential delay caused by the lag in the Department of Agriculture planning. But first question, obvious, what's the impact of this lag on the projected costs for the new OCCC?
I don't know yet because Department of Agriculture did not get the $3.5 million, the $3 million yet. I would imagine they've asked for money the last 2 years and they didn't get it from the legislature, even though it was clearly needed. So I don't know how far that will push back OCCC. I just don't know at this point. I do know that the escalation costs are between 8 and 12% every year. So every year we delay, we're adding 8 to 12% cost to the facility.
Mhm.
The original amount was a little over $500,000 in 2017 or 18. So when you add that 12% as a worst case scenario, you come up with $900 million.
Okay. It would seem, given the state economic situation,
What's the effect of the?
I see a lot of dollars flowing, both operating and capital, to help restore Maui, which means less for everybody else.
Correct. And
But-
that's why Director BNF Lewis Salaveria provided some financing options for the key legislators to consider with respect to OCCC, because the state is strapped for cash. And so nobody would expect the state to lay out that kind of money in GO bonds anyway. And so he provided them with 3 different financing options. And so for them to consider, but it wasn't a formal plan yet. I guess once we get to that point, he will present a formal plan after the governor gives the okay, and that is what will be presented to the legislature, and then they'll have to decide how they want to proceed. All of the plans, though, were essentially lease buybacks.
Yeah. Well, it's wondering if this is a good time to consider a shift in the planning. As you know, the commission has been advocating for what, 2 years now, that there'd be more community involvement, which could possibly impact the size of the new OCCC and the
Well,
usage of the new.
I disagree about the size issue. OCCC
Well-
today holds almost 1,100 people. We can't build a facility for 600 people because then we're going to create an overcrowded.
Tommy,
condition.
I'm not talking about specific numbers right now, but I
Okay.
think it behooves the department to include the community at this point, especially since we have an almost a doubling of the cost of this facility, and I'm concerned because of how you move forward, not only in the planned facilities. You talked about Kauai. In the previous meeting, one of your staff talked about moving the MCCC to a different site. And in another previous movie, you talked about a desire to open a new facility in Kona, on the Big Island. So what are your plans at this point for including the community and all of the other projects, or is OCCC going to be the template for how you move forward in these facilities?
Well, okay, so first, we've held, I don't know how many, but it has to be dozens of neighborhood board meetings in IAEA for OCCC. We invited the commission. The commission did not go. We're holding a symposium.
You did not invite the commission.
I did invite the commission.
That was for charrette, and it's not
No,
our
no.
business to participate in charrettes.
Okay. Okay, you guys, you invited for the charrette years ago. I wasn't part of the department then, but the meetings at the neighborhood board meeting are open to the public. Anybody can go. I did recommend the commission go to those meetings. I did have the commission come with members and meet with the governor. We had DAGs provide a presentation to legislators, to members of the commission. We had the consultant come in and provide. We're doing a symposium. We're doing an outreach with the UH School of Architecture. I don't know what else we can do. The more we delay, the worse the conditions that OCCC get, the more susceptible the state is to federal intervention and lawsuits, and the higher the cost of the facility.
Well, Tommy, I'm glad you mentioned the design center project. Where is it, and what impact is it going to have? I had a half-an-hour meeting with the planners there, and I don't know what happened to any input I may have given. I don't know who else was interviewed, who else was invited to participate.
We recommended that they cast the widest net possible to invite stakeholders, members from the public, politicians, community leaders, religious groups, cultural groups.
Right.
So they're still in the process.
I understand.
Of doing those meetings, gathering information. My understanding is following that, they will schedule a talk story session with the information they gathered so far to try to bring this people together to fine tune the information, recommendations, input.
Right. But the bottom line question is, what are you going to do with the input?
Use that to help us in the planning and design for the OCCC. Right now, all the drawings you see are conceptual, right? So with that input, we take that input and that can help inform us as to how we actually physically design the facility, how the processes work, how the facility is laid out. Because I can tell you now, right now we have 425 ACO positions at OCCC. If we provide, and we can hold up to 1,100, if we can provide a facility that's more efficiently laid out, we can probably hold the same amount of inmates with about 300, a little over 300 ACOs. That is a huge savings without sacrificing any safety or security. And we can provide better programming.
Yeah, I understand the inefficiencies of the design at OCCC. I may have been the first one to point it out publicly, by the way. And I understand the impact of a better design will have on staffing and over an operational cost. But I'm really talking about what is this facility going to be for? And you know, I'm just afraid. I'm just afraid that the design center project is simply going to be another report that sits on a shelf that has no impact.
Well, I can assure you, if I'm the director, it will not sit on the shelf. We have too many damn reports sitting on the shelf. They were going to move Maui back in 2007. They went $12 million. Nothing happened. There were other plans to move different facilities. Nothing happened. The state has spent tens of millions of dollars starting projects, doing planning and design, for the legislature not to fund it in the end.
Well, I'd like to see the report put into action, and if you're committing to that, then I guess that's what we can get today. But you know, I think a lot of people have been waiting for this ever since Max announced it more than a year ago.
Okay. Yeah.
And Tommy,
Yes.
we chose not to go to the neighborhood board meeting. The reason we chose that, the neighborhood board meeting is not the right forum to have a community discussion about a new correctional facility. In fact, at the neighborhood board, what the consultants were doing we were a line item, and they were merely updating the community as to what was going on. It is not the right forum for community interaction on the issue of corrections. We did not want to hijack their neighborhood board meeting and turn it into that. We didn't think that was appropriate.
So what is the commission looking for from public safety that it's not getting then?
A community meeting at some place, like a large place, it could be, you know, the convention center or the Capitol, where you invite people in for a lengthy meeting, like at least 2 to 3 hours, to discuss what the concerns are and how we might be able to change it. You talk specifically about physical plant. Right. It's a lot more than physical plant. It is moving people through the system. It is deciding who stays in, who should go to corrections in the first place, when they should get released from corrections. It's not just a physical plant.
No, but Martha, some of the stuff you're discussing are outside of the jurisdiction of public safety. We can't decide who comes to us. That's the judiciary.
We always considered this, Tommy. We never consider ourselves. You are really putting the department into a silo, like it's not connected to this system. We have to be looking at the system.
No, Martha, I'm not saying don't look at the system. I'm a huge advocate for people with mental health issues not coming to jail. That's the least effective, most costly option. So I'm a proponent for jail diversion. The judiciary has 25,000 people on probation, 13,000 felony probationers. They're feeding the system. That's where the damn diversion needs to take place, but it's not. So as a result, we have to take everybody that said to us, whether we're ready for them or not, we take them, we house them in the best we can, we provide the best care and treatment we can in old, antiquated facilities where we don't get money for CIP to keep the repairs up. And so when we're constantly, let me finish, please. When we're constantly being held accountable, but we're really just babysitters trying to help these people and straighten out their lives and change the trajectory of their lives to straighten them out, to help them successfully reintegrate back into the community. But nobody is talking about the judiciary who's feeding the system. Why isn't the commission working with the judiciary on jail diversion?
We, as a department, we used to work with the judiciary. We developed programs together with the judiciary. One that I was very involved with, the sex offender treatment program.
Right.
That went all across the system. You got to be a leader in more than just building. It is building those relationships and helping to have people understand.
Listen, I don't disagree, but I'm talking about the commission now. If the commission's job is to look at the system as a whole, then why isn't the commission looking at the feeder to the system to try to do the diversion?
Don't abdicate your responsibilities. You have a responsibility there too. Not
Martha, I'm not advocating my responsibilities. I'm saying if the commission is to look at the system as a whole, why isn't the commission working with the judiciary on jail diversion since the judiciary is the feeder to the whole system? That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to advocate anything. I've spoken several times to the Chief Justice and to Rod Mahdi about concerns that I had. I've spoken to the probation administrators. So I'm not advocating anything. I am trying to do what I can.
Use the word abdicate. that you give up your responsibility. I didn't say advocate,
Oh, I'm not,
advocate.
anyway, I'm not giving up my responsibility or my authority in any way. I'm trying to work with the other entities, but my question to the commission was, is the commission working with the judiciary as the feeder, as the main feeder to the system to try to do jail diversion and other programs so that the people don't come to jail? Because clearly our jails are what's overcrowded with pretrial misdemeanors and pretrial felons, a lot of which have mental health issues whose needs are not being met because we're not set up to meet those needs.
I think our judges may have some comments on
Yeah.
that. Mike?
Tommy, I agree. I enjoy agreeing with you because it can be sometimes seldom, but it's heartfelt. I agree. There was somebody on a neighbor island with a $20 bail. They couldn't even make
Correct.
$20. They needed to be no bail, by no cash bail, let them out. And I agree with you. We've had those discussions. I've got Judge Ibarra with me too. And you're 100% right. But having said that, I agree, you can't abdicate it and you're not doing it. You're raising a great point. We've had this discussion, and I'll defer to my colleague Judge Ibarra with the Chief Justice, the Chief Judge Kim, certainly on the Big Island, and we're trying hard, but we're retired, maybe not happily, but productively.
Okay.
Tommy, yeah, I hear you, and you're correct. The judiciary being, the feeder to the system, but they do have programs, as you know, like drug court, veteran treatment court, girls court, and domestic violence. And yes, those are the mechanism for diversion. But you have to, I know you understand, where are you going to divert them to? You need programs on the outside, substance abuse treatment and things like that, which the judiciary does not run. It runs a drug court. It's a cooperative effort where you get the stakeholders involved, just like what we're trying to do here to change the system. On top of that, regarding the bail, like you talked about, yeah, I heard about the $20 bill, but frankly, I was going to comment on that. On its face, it looks terrible, but I don't know the specifics because, as you know, sometimes a person gets arrested, held in jail on a felony, and then get arrested on a misdemeanor. And if the judge does not set minimum bail, well, that person is serving time for the felony as far as pretrial time, will not get credit for the misdemeanor charge if a nominal bail is not imposed. So, I looked at that. I also looked at other things that, the newspaper called me about, these people being in jail for mental health and fitness issues. But frankly, I really don't know what's happening. And certainly, yes, I agree with you. All we can do with the judiciary or the judges to educate them, to bring out the concerns, because as you know, judges can, just like public safety folks, can be pretty stubborn, right? And judges, they don't run for office. They are once appointed, gets retained. And certainly I would like to think that when they make the decision, they go by evidence and the law, and they have a principle called judicial independence. Basically, each judge is responsible for its own decision. And that's why I'm kind of hesitant when I see comments about, well, go tell this judge, don't set this amount of bail, and tell this judge, do so and so. Frankly, if the judge followed, a recommendation outside of the courtroom or a suggestion outside of the courtroom, that judge may be committing a violation of the judicial conduct principles. And certainly, I know we all want a fair system, but yes, I think we can all do better by talking about it like we are, civilly, and letting the judge know the concerns. And certainly when I was a judge, I'd listen, but after listening, I look at the evidence and law and make up my own mind. But certainly at least I would consider, the jail population and the conditions and things like that. But yes, I think we should be talking all about it. And yes, you bring out a good point. The feeder of the system is the judiciary, but we all got to work together, getting the programs set up. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Any other comment from the commissioners? Okay, the next on the agenda is ThoughtWorks Corrections Field Study Presentation.
All right, so for those of you who don't know, I've been working directly with a company called ThoughtWorks. They're an incredible company. They're across the nation, I think also across the world, actually. They've been working with us directly to create our case management system so that we can have a really organized way, to input our letters, input our complaints, and be able to break it down more than just by complaint type. We want to break it down by demographics. We want to break it down by facility. We want to break it down by literally any type of information we can gather. So a part of this project, Natasha Jimenez, who is on the meeting today and will be presenting, she actually came out to Hawaii. She went to OCCC and Halava with me. She spoke to officers and people in custody. And additionally, she also spoke with some key community stakeholders here, just to get an idea, if we were going to create a case management system, what could that look like? She gathered a lot of really interesting information, some of it that went beyond the case management system. A lot of it was encompassing data that people want to see. So ThoughtWorks actually went a step further, and they're also helping us build a website that's dedicated to data. And so anything that we have, we want to put it out to the community in a way that they can understand and see it and share it to different stakeholders as needed. So with all of that said, I'm really excited to introduce Natasha and also Chinwe, who are both from ThoughtWorks, who will be presenting on their work and their findings and some potential recommendations that they have for us as the commission.
Thanks so much, Kristen, for having us here and letting us share back on this research that we conducted. So as mentioned, I'm Natasha Jimenez, and I'm a lead experience designer and a researcher for a company called ThoughtWorks. A lot of my work focuses on design and research for civic and social justice organizations. And in my research, I try to close gaps between people's experiences and those with power to change them. And Chinwe is here with me as well.
Yeah, so I'm Chinwe. I'm a product designer and researcher as well. And I've been able to work with Kristen in the past year with a group of other thought workers to help build her complaint manager system.
So today we're just going to give a bit of a report back on the research that we did. So starting with a bit of an overview of how it all went, and then we're going to go into some key insights based on 3 audiences that we identified: people in custody and their families, correction staff, and then community members. And we're going to also give some recommendations for next steps. So here's we're going to go into a bit of an overview.
Yeah, so one of ThoughtWorkers, or who are we, right? So ThoughtWorks' main value as a global tech firm is that we have a responsibility to have an impact with tech on society. So we do this kind of collaborative work with organizations and nonprofits to leverage tech as a tool for social change. This has allowed us to collaborate with the commission to design and create tools centered around a system that submits, tracks, and publishes complaint data. But as mentioned, we were able to extend this and send Natasha to do an on-the-ground field study to interview and gather insights on those affected by the correctional system and ensure that our collaborative efforts meets these populations' needs.
So we started with 3 key research goals. We knew in partnering with the commission that complaint data was central to their mission. So we wanted to first understand how to ensure the safety of those submitting complaints in the design of their complaint system. So we looked into the whole current complaint systems in place at these facilities. Secondly, we wanted to understand how we can use data to help these legislatures and key stakeholders in the system make better policies that, first of all, reduce the number of people who are incarcerated who are low risk, reduce jail overcrowding, and help the department be a more rehabilitative and therapeutic place, which is one of their mandates. And then thirdly, understand what data is most important to people who access and use the dashboard. So this includes families of those incarcerated, legislatures, judges, commissioners, members of the public, and local community organizations. We were imagining all these stakeholders we hope would access and use the data, and we want to make something that is meaningful to these stakeholders. So this year, across 2 days, we did a visit we went to OCCC in Halava. And first we started by conducting contextual inquiry. So what that means is in order to get a sense of these facilities and the everyday lives, we visited the prison and jail rec yards, solitary confinement, group cells, medical facilities, the admin area, cafeteria, and even the library center. So we did a big walk around each of the facilities. And then through the course of the visits, we also interviewed 4 people in custody, 4 corrections officers. We interviewed each of the wardens. And then we also, just through visiting the facilities and getting stopped by different people, we had about 15 informal conversations with different folks there. And then finally, we held a focus group where we invited 7 community leaders from various grassroots organizations and nonprofits, DPS, and corrections reform lawyers to have a conversation about their experiences and better understand their perspectives. Before I go further, I wanted to give a bit of a note on design research because I understand this is not a survey that collects hundreds of responses, but it is a small, targeted, like very deliberate group of interviews. And observing and interviewing a handful of people in order to improve the design of something is a 60-plus-year-old practice. And there's 2 researchers, actually, Jacob Nielsen and Tom Launder, who built a mathematical model that shows that by doing a qualitative test with just 5 participants, you can identify 85% of the issues in an interface. So they argue that a good investment is to start with 5 people and have deep qualitative user research interviews with them. And this way you'll find 85% of the issues, you can fix them and then test again with another 5 people and so on. And we believe that public services should be designed with a focus on accessibility, usability, and equity. And so these insights from a handful of people, I think, can really help us design towards these goals. So our hypothesis going into this research was, so in order to help the commission design a better case and data management system, we needed to understand what are the gaps and pain points in the way that the current complaint and grievance system works. And then secondly, if the commission can use data that identifies where we are failing those in the carceral system, we can inform legislature, judges, and the community at large. And then we can create new programs and enact policies that reduce the number of people who are incarcerated first and improve the conditions for those who live and also work at the facilities. So I'm going to go into some of the key insights based on audiences. So we identified 3 personas that we group people into and we group the insights into. So the first I'm going to talk about is people in custody. And then we also have corrections staff and community members. And to give a bit of an overview, some of the things we found in the current state of the correction system in Hawaii was that those incarcerated in prisons and jails currently face dire conditions. Infrastructure and facilities is outdated, and this can cause security concerns for both those that are working at facilities as well as those in custody. Jails and overcrowding is a big problem. Many cells are holding double the capacity of people, and this forces them to live in inhumane living conditions. If a jail has double the capacity, that means that some people may be sleeping with their head right beside sanitation facilities and toilets, which is not an appropriate way to house people at all. Corrections officers are required to consistently work shifts that can last longer than 24 hours with no relief. And those incarcerated are not getting their allotted rec hours. And we found even when we spoke to some corrections officers, not all of them know what even their allotted recreation hours are. So policies don't seem to be fully clear across the board. And access to phones, to get the bail that they're required to help them get out, it may be more challenging than it should be for people. So going into the first group, which is insights for those that are in custody. So we found 3 key pain points when interviewing people in custody. Focused when our questions were around the complaint system and their experiences. So the first is, we understand, as mentioned earlier, the commission understands how critical feedback is to improving conditions of incarceration. However, the reality in carceral facilities is that people in custody do not typically feel safe submitting complaints via the current grievance system in place. In order to attain grievance forms, they have to ask COs for them, and their submission can be read by those COs. One person said, "You're around these people, the COs, every day. So if they want toilet paper, food, if they need a pad, they have to ask the CO. So they don't want to jeopardize that relationship with the CO, and they'll deal with a lot of challenging attitudes and unfair treatment just to survive that experience." Complaints get sent back if they're not filled out correctly, yet submitters don't receive appropriate instruction for filling them out. And then there are also accounts of people facing harassment and retaliation for submitting complaints. One person said that they complained about lacking privacy while showering, that one of the COs was pulling down shower curtains. And he went through the process of submitting a complaint, and then he got sent to the SHU for submitting that complaint by the same officer that was said to be pulling down the shower curtains. And then even when those in custody do decide to submit complaints, the process for filing a grievance can feel unclear and complicated. And it's not seen as worth the risk by many of them. So one person said he had to do research to understand what was the department responsible in order to submit the grievance to the right department, because they kept getting kicked back for being in the wrong department. And those in custody should not be responsible for doing this research in order to have their complaints heard. The processes for what happens after they submit their complaint also lack transparency and trackability. So many people will submit it and then have no idea when they're going to hear back or what even happened to their grievance. And they also don't receive timely responses to their complaints. And finally, the quality of complaints can be low due to them being handwritten. So as the commission designs a system to capture the complaints of those in custody, we feel considerations need to be given to building an anonymous, safe, and accessible submission process. Surprisingly, the tablets were a popular option among those interviewed. And it was interesting because in the work I've done as a researcher, it's actually really rare that people I speak with identify a technological solution to their problems. But surprisingly, in this case, a lot of the people we interviewed pointed to the tablets in almost every interview as an option that would make them feel more safe. A tablet app could support multiple languages. It could include a user experience that helps explain the submission process and offer screen reader options for those with physical disabilities. It would also help those processing complaints, since they would more easily be able to read and sort through complaint data. This could save a lot of time, which could then provide a tighter turnaround for complaints and increase people's trust in the complaint system. And then the third insight was that there's a lack of educational opportunities, mental health support, and transitional housing. One of the mandates of the commission is focused on including more rehabilitative and therapeutic practices into the carceral system. So we asked those in custody what things they imagined the facility could offer that could make it a more rehabilitative and therapeutic place. And these were the three main categories brought up: educational opportunities, mental health support, and transitional housing. Those in custody expressed a strong desire to work towards improving themselves while in custody through programs and educational opportunities. They had so many ideas that would help give them a sense of purpose, ranging from a gardening program. He said, it's a big thing to be able to take care of something else, to workplace preparedness. Another person said, we don't really know how to create a resume or apply for a job, and some help around this would be really helpful. However, one thing we found is that many programs do not run when they're meant to, and there's a lack of sufficient learning opportunities in these facilities. Substance abuse and mental health support was another big topic. It was mentioned that those with mental health needs can be stuck in a cycle because they may get some medication that stabilizes them in jail. And then when they get released to the streets, they don't have medication, they have a mental health breakdown, they don't have any support or housing resources. Maybe they steal something to eat and end up in jail again. This was something that a person interviewed in custody mentioned. And the last one is about recidivism and getting help to transition outside of the carceral system. They felt a deep lack of support upon release, financially, physically, and emotionally. Transitional housing was a big need, but also other things mentioned were smaller things like just having a bus pass when they get out or having an ID upon release. So from these insights, we have 3 audience-specific recommendations for people in custody. The first is around getting that better data for complaint submissions. So enable a secure and anonymous way for those in custody to submit complaints. And having tablets already in place at the facilities, this is a really good option for doing that. Make sure that those in custody are aware of and understand the processes behind complaint avenues so that it's easy for them to submit those complaints, and make sure that they have an opportunity to submit them confidentially. Secondly, monitor and show data around grievance kickback percentages, submission response times, and the impacts of resolutions to showcase a commitment to prompt resolutions. Also link tablets to Offender Track and extend similar solutions for the Hawaii Commission complaints. Lastly, look at data on corrections program outcomes, number of people served, and the actual hours of operation that programming is available.
Excuse me. This is Ted Sakai. Can I ask a question at this point? Hello? Martha?
We'll open the floor for questions at the end.
Okay. Yeah, this is a question specifically for this screen. I understand your recommendation about tablets, but my question is how accessible are the tablets so inmates can have ready access to file a grievance and to find out when a response has been made? And that's my question.
So your question is how
accessible are these
accessible?
tablets, or do the inmates have to put in a request for a tablet, wait an hour or a day to get the tablet in order to file a grievance, and then go through the same process to receive a tablet back so they can check to see if there's a response? Is this a program that the department really should be improving on, expanding on?
I can help with that. So at Halava, the tablets are almost in like a permanent structure. And so as long as the individuals can come out of their cell into that space for like the microwave, and it's almost like the day room right in front of the cells. As long as they can come out of their cells in that space, they can utilize the tablets. For OCCC, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember directly seeing those.
I didn't see a whole lot
Permanent
of
posts.
tablets.
Yeah, I don't remember as much as, so OCCC, Ted, to your point, that might be a big issue as far as accessibility to the tablets, but I know at Halava, they do have access to them.
And at KCCC, the tablets were readily available in the living units. They could just pick one up.
They were available from staff at OCCC.
Okay.
Like staff in the units would go to the ACOs, and that's where the people in custody would get.
Okay, yeah, so Kara just confirmed at OCCC, they do have to request the tablets from staff
On the
unit.
Thank you. I think this is a great recommendation if the tablets are readily accessible to the inmates.
If
And
I might add real quick, this is Tommy. We tested the electronic grievance system on the tablets in July. I'll send Christian and Mark the results of that initial testing.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
That's really great to hear. Yeah, so I'll finish these and then I'll hand it over to Chinwe. But lastly, we just hope this data can encourage DPS to increase the offering of educational opportunities available at facilities.
So I'll take it over from here. We'll be covering insights from the next group, which is correction staffs. Again, these are insights from interviews with 4 officers and 2 wardens. An overview of the main pain points that we found is that correctional officers are overworked and short-staffed. Staff members can be removed from the experience of people in custody. Correctional officers feel inadequately trained and ill-equipped from the job. Together, these can compound towards officers having a lack of emotional capacity for newer officers and people in custody. Next slide. So yes, 254 officers work 16 to 48-hour shifts. With the existing intensity of the position, which is then heightened by chronic overcrowding, correctional officers find themselves both overworked and understaffed. And we'll see with the next insight that it does have downstream effects. For instance, one officer that we spoke with finds themselves asking if they can maintain a family in the future while holding this position. They've seen a lot of people try and end up resigning. The next quote speaks to the experience that being short-staffed means that officers hardly have the time to take care of both their physical and mental well-beings. Another thing that we found is that staff can be quite removed from people in custody's day-to-day experience. So what this looks like, for instance, case managers are inaccessible and physically removed from people in custody. There's no open door policy. They have to first go through officers before they can access other staff. And as a result, we found in the interviews that some of these staff have a misconception of what people in custody are actually going through. And we found that officers can also be unaware of the facility policies that they're in charge of. One officer that we interviewed was in charge of rec time. However, when asked, he didn't know what the policy was or what the required times should be, which again can be a result of the previous point. We found, next slide. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we found a sentiment across the wardens and officers that there isn't enough relevant material taught in training. This leads to being unprepared for the day-to-day and on-the-ground hurdles of the job. We found that more experienced officers see newer officers as a liability that will quickly leave the job due to lack of training. And as a result, they're hesitant to invest the time to mentor them further. A significant quote that we found shows that an officer may know the textbook definition between somebody who's schizophrenic or bipolar. However, they aren't prepared on how to handle people with different types of mental health symptoms in real life. And we found that this all compounds to officers developing a lack of emotional capacity for the experiences of people in custody and newer officers. Generally, they expect burnout and recidivism in their workplace. And we can see that due to the nature of the job, witnessing repeated inhumane conditions for long periods of time in these facilities, they build an emotional disconnect as a common coping strategy in order to continue with this line of work. So here are a few recommendations that we have for this group. Specifically for the commission, we recommend collecting staffing complaints. This contributes towards sharing a broader story of the impacts of under-resourcing and overcrowding and how that extends to the staff experience and then back to the person in custody's experience. We then recommend leveraging these data points to advocate for staffing reforms to PSD, specifically more relevant correctional training that has a rehabilitative focus, and then also advocate for a review of the outdated and inefficient shift relief factor. The next group includes community members. Again, this comes from a 7-person focus group, which encompass members of PSD, correction reform lawyers, and grassroots groups. To quickly highlight their pain points and needs, people are not receiving the proper basic resources when they leave, and this is a big issue that community members want to tackle. There's also not an emphasis on the positive impacts of educational programming, and there's also a lack of required programming available. Organizers want to access more data sources to identify what to focus on, and they find that people in custody are not being humanized. And this group believes that increasing storytelling can be a better vehicle to win buy-in from people in power. One key item for reform that organizers are focused on is this issue of the lack of basic resources when leaving the correctional system. So having access to these essential items such as ID, a bus pass, housing, upon release can prevent homelessness, which is a large contributor to recidivism and overcrowding. So with a focus on reducing both recidivism rates and overcrowding, organizers have expressed an interest in gaining access to data points surrounding this issue to illustrate how this impacts the number of people in the correctional system. Ultimately, all of these can have an influence on key correctional decisions. Another key reform item includes increasing access to educational programming. So having educational programming is beneficial to the person in custody's correctional experience. From the quote that you can see there, it can be significant towards adding purpose in this harsh environment. But another significant is that some programs can be required by the parole board. And we found that some people may be held back in the system due to a lack of availability and access to these programs. Again, organizers are interested in how to best advocate for better custody conditions. The more data points that they have can help uncover insights that then drives a narrative towards specific and directed policy. Better data helps to inform and direct focus on what needs most of their effort. So one example, for instance, is that there's 350 people using 80% of the health budget. And it was expressed like, how can we get a more granular insight on what is driving that, what population that is, and what their need is. So a big topic for community leaders centered around what communication vehicle can effectively motivate move makers in the system. So people like legislators, judges, etc. There was an emphasis on not just getting and directly sharing data points, but being able to storytell and humanize the pervasive effects the current system has on members of the community. So putting a face on who's inside and their families to increase empathy and buy-in. So our recommendations include creating a platform that not only shares data, but tells that humanistic narrative of the tangible effects that the system has on real people, real families, and people that are members of the community. We recommend using data that will eventually come from the complaint system, but also identify what other helpful data sources the Commission has access to and can provide. And we also recommend advocating to PSD to implement systems to collect data where there are identified gaps. So this final slide will be an overview and a focus on specific recommendations towards our expressed research goals that were mentioned in the beginning. So to recap those, they were, how can we create an effective data dashboard? What stories and data is needed and missing? And how can they be used to make waves towards those in power to create rehabilitative changes? Overall, we found that there's a lack of visibility and data to represent the real stories and experiences of those affected by the correctional system. And we have some ideas on how to better cover those gaps. So for people in custody, the focus should be on collecting better quality complaints that truly represent what is going on in the system without the current hurdles that they face to file a complaint. So to do so, the anonymous complaint process should be enhanced. And as mentioned, it would be fruitful to push for PSD to allow for complaints going to the Commission to also be filed on the existing in-house tablets. For correctional officers, they are a part of the story as well, and we recommend collecting their complaints. Their experience can be used to create a broader view of the impacts of the correctional system that is in need of reform. And finally, community members, their work can be enhanced and refined by increased data access and the insights that come from that. So we recommend working together with them to see if the commission has data access that can be helpful to these groups, to collaborate with them to display compelling stories for the dashboard, and to focus on how to translate these numbers, data to real stories about real people. And that concludes our executive summary, and we'd like to open the floor for additional questions and comments.
Commissioner?
I have a question. It's good that you folks observed and made recommendations, which is in every system, I believe, can be improved. What are the positive recommendations that you came up with, if any, so that the Department of Public Safety can continue? Did you hear me?
Yes,
What's
that's
working?
a really good question. Yeah, I guess related to what was asked about with the tablets, I think it's great that that avenue is being pursued for submitting complaints. And in some of the group housing scenarios, I also saw like people would just pass around the tablets. So allowing them to have, they would have like a certain allotted amount of tablet, like they'd have 1 hour a day, or I'm not sure how much the total was of tablet time that they could go and use to read or to do different activities in one of the group housing facilities that I saw. So I saw that that would be like, well, that was a positive program, and it would be a good way for them to feel safe submitting complaints because they could take the tablet to like a table and they might be reading or they might be submitting a complaint, but either way, it would allow some anonymity. So I think that's one thing. But I did see a lot more pain points for sure.
Another thing to add is we found that the wardens are motivated to increase programming access, especially like educational programs. And they have identified that officer training is lacking and they're motivated to enhance it.
So you recommend public safety continue along that positive findings?
The purpose of an effective complaint system would help us identify where those gaps are and give more specific recommendation. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we can focus on what complaints are we receiving? What are the, also grouping them by like category and data, overlaying that with even demographic data around who's submitting the complaints, their demographics, and then using that to empower change to happen, but also to inform the public about what's happening within the carceral system.
Ted, do you have a comment?
I do. I have a question, actually. I think you provided great information on the officers, but did you have the opportunity to talk to case managers, educational staff, and other program staff about what they're seeing?
Yes, we had a few more informal conversations with case managers. And we did have a conversation with one of the educational staff members. So some of these insights include their perspectives. And particularly, I don't know, one of the insights around also noticing that case managers in one of the facilities seemed far removed from the people in custody was an interesting one, that they don't have an open door policy, which meant we felt some of their experiences were a bit removed from the on the ground reality.
Yeah, it seems they need to be empowered a great deal to do their jobs. And education is at the mercy of the correctional officers, whether they send the inmates or not. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's right.
I guess so. good report. What I just had occasion to help a longtime friend go through the hospital experience. It's an ethic of care, ethic of getting well, therapeutic, restorative care, right? An ethic where iatrogenic disease. Are you aware that what that means? Iatrogenic disease is the medical mischief. When they leave, they walk out with a discharge plan. Their meds, their bag. That is a sort of a horizontal cooperative system, not vertical. The carceral system really concerns me because it's this whole lens that we look at through. We want our people to get out into the community with a discharge plan. Better. How are we going to do that? Have you ever thought it through that kind of an approach? You don't
Kristen,
have
did
to,
you-
you could take the Fifth Amendment. That's okay.
Yeah, I think I would definitely defer to some of the ideas that the community members had brought into it. And I think a lot of them were saying, having more programming available, like one person even was referring to the Scandinavian system and how they're saying a lot of doctors and people within that system will work in hospitals and then they'll do shifts in the carceral system or do shifts for those that are coming out of the carceral system. So just what they were saying was we need more community involvement and more programming for people once they leave the system.
And
What
you
I'm
mentioned,
talking about is having a discharge plan that's comprehensive, rather than take a black bag and plastic bag and go stand under the plumeria tree in Halava. That is not, it's 180 degrees from what it should be. And forgive me, I just got to say it because I've lived in this world a long time. Thank you.
Chinwe, did you have something?
yeah, I was going to add, you've mentioned that you have a friend that has gone through this, and I'm sure there's like many others, and collecting their stories and showing that that is a systematic problem and being able to use that to leverage advocating for a better discharge system would be helpful. So again, amplifying your voices could help push for that.
It is part of our mandate to assist the department in this transition to a more rehabilitative and therapeutic system. And what you brought up about the separation between the correctional officers and the program staff is stark, and it's been there for a long time. That our case managers are often not on site. They move to offices that are away and inaccessible from the inmates, but it also makes them inaccessible from the ACOs, so they don't feel any unity between the two of them. And we need to encourage more of that unity. And in my experience, I have found that as a program person, you share what's going on with the program with the ACOs so they understand. And then eventually they start sharing with you behavior of that inmate in the unit that you can use in your programming. And it leads to very positive and supportive relationships on both sides.
Yeah, and I think that was an insight that we found was just the general culture around staff and COs is really challenging. And it can be really challenging for new COs that they don't receive enough support, even incorporating into this new job and field from existing staff members.
Or should we just take our own independent break?
So any other comments?
I just wanted to thank Natasha and Chinwe for this work. I should have mentioned in the beginning that, ThoughtWorks has not only been a partner with us for well over a year at this point, but they're also doing all of this work completely for free, no cost to the state, no cost to the commission. And for them to put in the incredible amount of work to the case management system, but also see the importance of physically coming out here and speaking to the staff, speaking to the community, speaking to people in custody, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better partnership, a better team to work directly with. I'm so grateful for you guys and your work. And also, you know, when they had showed me the PowerPoint, I was so shocked at how much Natasha picked up after one visit to OCCC in Halava. I mean, it was just really incredible to see it all come together. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you both for your work. This is not where it ends. This is where it begins. But thank you both for being here and presenting today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Good report.
the next item on the agenda is the monthly oversight coordinators report.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kristen Johnson. I'm the Oversight Coordinator. Our report is available online, and George, can you please put it in the chat so people can kind of follow along? You'll notice a different format for the report this month. We're trying to make it as interesting as possible for people so they actually read it. So to start off, unfortunately, we do have to start off with an in-custody death. On August 18th, 2023, at HCCC, a person in custody, male, 56 years old, was found unresponsive in his cell at approximately 4:20 in the morning. 911 emergency services were called, and the person was transported to the Hilo Medical Center. And at approximately 5:19 a.m., HCCC was notified that the individual was pronounced deceased. This does appear to be a death by suicide. The Hilo Police Department and the Department of Public Safety's Internal Affairs Unit are conducting their respective investigations. Moving to the next line, so the Hawaii Paroling Authority hearing. So since we brought on our incredible staff member, Kara Campani, she has begun kind of reviewing the parole hearings to get a better understanding of how they work, how they function. I have to give her a big shout out because the most recent one that she reviewed was on August 17th for the Women's Community Correctional Center. And I believe that it took about 9 hours to get through all of the hearings, and Kara stayed through until the very end. So we kind of, gave a brief overview of that. We will have more information on the parole process and potential recommendations that we have as we continue to learn more about the process and figure out the best way forward. Also legislative correctional facility tours. So on August 22nd, 2023, I took a list of Hawaii representatives from the House that included Representative Mark Hashem, Representative Ichiyama, Rep Nakamura, Rep Ganadin, Rep Popo, and Rep Evslin. The intention of the tour was to bring awareness of the conditions there and to talk about, the potential legislation or potential ideas of how to help with this. It was a great tour, very impactful. And I just want to give a special thanks to the warden and chief of security, and also Tommy Johnson for allowing this tour to happen. It was after hours. It was kind of a last minute thing thrown together per Rep Hashem's request. But I really, really appreciate the department, allowing that to happen and allowing to give them that experience. It was a great, great opportunity. Additionally, on September 8th, 2023, I toured the Saguaro Correctional Center with Senator Wakai, Senator Elefante, and then a few members from the governor's office and also the Department of Public Safety. Again, it was a great tour. This one was more introductory for ones who hadn't been to Saguaro before, but it was a great opportunity to talk about, the commission's goals and especially how best to bring people home. We really respect that the programs are outstanding at Saguaro. We don't want to take away from that. But the goal here, I think, is to really bring those things home so that people aren't preferring to be so far from their community and their families. In addition, the commission had attended the Going Home Hawaii Reentry and Restoration Summit, which occurred on August 23, 2023. Fantastic summit. We included several different highlights, but a couple that I wanted to highlight was Director of Public Safety Tommy Johnson really articulated the paradigm shift that's necessary to affect system-wide change and emphasize the need for diversion and community partnerships, which we also heard from Tommy today in this meeting. So we really appreciate that. The House Concurrent Resolution 23 Task Force is an actual agenda item, so I'm going to skip over that part, but please take a look. Also, as Kat had mentioned earlier, the recordings are available on our website if you'd like to check out those meetings. We also conducted a community meeting with Just Leadership USA. A dear friend of mine, Ronald Simpson Bay, is the Executive Vice President of Strategic Partnership at Just Leadership USA. And he reached out asking if, they could just start a conversation of if there's potential to bring some of their work to Hawaii, what that could look like. And they really wanted to start off by meeting with different community members. So it was a great presentation, and Just Leaderships USA entire mission and what they do is really to amplify the power of directly impacted people by elevating their voices and making sure that they have the tools to self-organize and advocate for themselves, their families, and their communities. So many thanks to Ronald Simpson Bay and also Deanna Hoskins, who is the president and CEO of Just Leadership USA. We were very lucky to have them come. Tommy had mentioned this event earlier, but Breaking Cycles, Re-envisioning a Health, Housing, and Corrections Continuum is a huge event that is occurring on October 10th and October 11th from 8:30 to 4 p.m. And it's going to be held at the YWCA in downtown Honolulu. We put the link in our report. We also put it on social media, but please sign up and register. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers. This is an event that is, has been collectively planned by me as a part of the commission, Bob Merce as a part of the Corrections Reform Working Group, Kathy, who is a part of UH's, don't let me get it wrong, School of Architecture, and also, of course, the Department of Public Safety. This is going to be a great event, so please sign up. And then lastly, we just have a couple of project updates. So of course, the case management system, which we've been talking about quite a bit, it has been a long time coming to get this together, but we're so excited that it's about to launch. We are planning to do an official launch at our next commission meeting where we can screen share and kind of give an overview of the tool for the commissioners to see. But we're really proud of it. This has been customized from day one to meet the needs of Hawaii, and so we can't wait to launch. And in addition, and this aligns, I think, actually really well with ThoughtWorks presentation. The commission's next large project that the staff are focusing on is a staff-focused survey and report. Kara and I have been working hard on this. We found a survey that 5 other states have actually participated in. It's a long survey. It's very comprehensive, but it's really to show the experience of the staff. So with that, we wanted to, try to collect all of their thoughts and ideas in a forum that, we can compare with other states. And once we have those results, we want to do talk stories with the staff to share the results, say, hey, does this look right to you? What do you think? And really focus on solutions with them. So we're very excited about that. This is a project that we're very fortunate that the Department of Public Safety, Tommy and his leadership team have supported. They're excited to see our results as well. In addition to the United Public Workers, UPW also supports this project. So we're excited to get this kicked off. We will absolutely keep you all posted on our progress. But I just want to be clear, we wanted to start with the staff report because without staff, you can't have out of cell time, you can't have programs, you can't have escorts. There are just so many pieces that staff have to hold up and navigate. So we wanted to, kind of focus on them first. And then we'll be doing similar surveys with people in custody to figure out where exactly we should focus our next upcoming reports. Other than that, we have our expenses listed for the last month and also our general office information. And unless there are any questions, that is it for me.
Kristen, there's a question in the chat box about the capacity of the facility we're going to be using. Is there going to be a limit on participation?
Yeah, so the YWCA told us that they can fit 175 people. Now, to be fair, that's with big circle tables. And so as the RSVPs come in, please RSVP. We will either be using the large circular tables if there's 175 or less, or we can remove the tables and do more of like theater style seating, where I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it's significantly more. So it'll depend on how many people RSVP, but we're very much hoping to have everybody be able to come.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay. Whoops, I just hid my agenda. The next item is the House Concurrent Resolution 23 Task Force, and again, I'll look for Kristen.
Okay.
Oh, Ron. I'm
And Kristen.
sorry.
Okay, the first meeting of the HCR 23 Task Force was held September 12 in this room. And pursuant to the resolution, the stakeholders were all present. And it's listed who were part of the task force on the resolution. So first of all, if you need to get the resolution, where can they get it, Kristen?
Off the legislative website.
Or it's also on our website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's self-explanatory who the members are. It's self-explanatory what the task force, well, I won't say self-explanatory. It states what the task force should be doing, but the task force still has to define the scope of its mission within HCR number 23. So some of the stakeholders that were, well, all of the stakeholders were present. There is a diverse number of people from different groups, prosecutors, public safety, defense bar, judges, victims, parole board, attorney general's office. And so it was a diverse group. There were a lot of discussion, lively discussion. And, I was there. I was amazed by the passion these people displayed or based on their personal beliefs. So, that was the the bulk of the meeting, and it was basically introductions of the members. Representative Takayama was present to explain the intent of HCR 23, and the Council of State Governments presented some sentencing procedures from different states, which we appreciate, and I think you can get that presentation on the website. And the next meeting is November. Well, it's going to change. Stay tuned for the next meeting, and Kristen will explain how you can listen in on the next meeting and the administrative procedures. But for me, as a former judge, prosecutor, defense counsel, I am hopeful there might be some changes, whether it's going to be major or minor, that remains to be seen with input from members of the commission as well as the public.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what did Greg say was the origin? Why did he
Greg
decide to do
is
this? Greg
basically,
Takayama.
looking at the parole board, whether their procedures in setting up a minimum sentence should be, just as stated in the resolution, and should be evaluated and come up with recommendation to the legislature by October next year, right? October 21st.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because in discussion with him, he did talk about he was concerned about the amount of time that is dedicated to setting minimums. It's about 1/3 or 30% of their time.
Yeah, I guess to break it down, bottom line is whether the parole board should set the minimum or the judge should set the minimum. That's the bottom line, and there are other issues, surrounding that, I think, major issue.
Yeah, and George, if you can put the website in the chat so we have a specific webpage on the commission's website that's dedicated to this task force. Any and all information that is accessible to the task force will also be put on this website. So presentations, different data that we get. If you notice that there's not a lot of data up now, it's because we are collecting data currently. So bear with us as we go through this process. The future meetings will be live streamed. on the commission's Facebook page and also on the commission's YouTube. So keep an eye out for that. But other than that, you can always reach out to me or Mark Patterson if you have any questions about the task force. But we're honored and excited to have the commission be a part of it, and we'll keep the community posted as we move through.
I have a question. Ron, did the issue of civility come up on the parole board? Because the parole board does release, it also does minimums. Minimums is like mini sentencings, and that could cause people who aren't trained in the law or otherwise to get a little excited. And I keep hearing that civility is an issue.
Yeah,
Not with Fred. Fred's actually.
no, Fred was at the meeting and it never came up, at least civility, but certainly I would expect in all public officials in carrying out their responsibility would be civil. Albeit, respectfully conveying their position passionately, but
Good.
civility, but it never came up. Right, Chris?
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I'm just looking at the time.
Martha, excuse me, I have a quick follow-up to the event at the Y.
Yeah.
And this is actually a question that was posted in the chat, and I think it's a really good one. Thank you, Carolyn. Is there going to be a remote option, or do people who want to participate have to be there?
I don't know, but I will find out.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a remote option. A lot of people would have a hard time getting downtown where parking is limited, but we also have some people from the neighbor islands who might be interested in this.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I will definitely find that out. I will say one large part about this event is at the end of day 2, we're really hoping for people to come in person for the end of day 2 in particular, because we're going to be doing a large workshop with everyone involved, specifically looking at like solutions that are well beyond just the general, oh, we need housing, oh, we need healthcare, oh, we need, like, we want to get into the nitty gritty of who exactly would be in charge of this, which department should we look at for this. And so that, I will be honest, would be very difficult to do in a hybrid way. We could definitely live stream it, I think, but we really, really want people to come if they can. But yes, Ted, I will absolutely ask about a remote option.
Thank you.
Ted, let me chime in a little bit. I just had some family fly in, and the trip was great, but when they flew in, they had COVID, and our doctor said this new COVID variant is pretty nasty. So I don't want to get people together unless I have to, particularly people that have compromised immune system.
Thank you.
Someone just put that in the chat too, Carolyn, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think also like Going Home Hawaii had an event recently where they had 350 people in attendance. It was an incredible event. They also live streamed every part of that. And so I don't see a reason why we can't do that as well, but I'll make sure to inquire about that and report back.
Yeah, Kristen, since you mentioned there's going to be a working group, and so has the committee, the planning committee, identified who should be there? For example, if we're going to pursue who's responsible for housing, has the planning committee identified these people so they can be invited specifically?
Yeah.
So they can give input?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Department of Public Safety is actually putting together more official invitations to those specific stakeholders. But I will also be sending a kind email asking them to join as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me. One final follow-up on the event. If we're able to live stream, how will we let the public know?
We will post that on our social media pages on Instagram and Facebook. We also have what is it called? A listserv, an email listserv. And so any type of updates regarding events like this, we try to send out emails to everybody letting them know. You can sign up for that listserv by emailing hcsoc@hawaii.gov. George, if you could put that in the chat as well. You can email us, we'll add you to that list so that you can get different updates. But also please keep an eye out on our social media pages.
Can you also put it on the web? Because like, I don't do social media, so I would not be able to access it.
Yeah, actually, that's an important part that I just didn't talk about at all. There's a specific website for the events, specifically, and that's where you register. So any information that's applicable to the event, we have speaker bios, we have the agenda, you know, it's going to continuously be updated. Bear with us with that. But yes, we will put that on the webpage. And George, if you can also put that in the chat, that'd be great. So people can check out the symposium webpage specifically. Thank you, Ted. I forgot about that.
And the sponsors of this conference, because it's not just us.
No, the sponsor, it's a
So
whole
when
list.
making decisions about going on the web and stuff, she has to go back to the larger group.
Yeah, so the main planners again are Kathy Hoshar from UH, me, and Bob Merce. So we're kind of the think tank. But of course, the Department of Public Safety, I believe, is funding this entire event. This event is free. So we definitely encourage you to come.
Have you been down to that Y before?
But yeah, that should be everybody.
Okay,
And if it's not, please look at the website. It'll have more information than what I'm probably giving out right now. So please check it out.
at this point, we're gonna go into public comment, but I do want to let you know, we have just been joined by members of the Attorney General.
Thank you.
We will be going into executive committee or an executive session to discuss one particular issue. So I ask that, and we will have to reconvene after our executive session. So if people want to hang out, I ask for public comment now, but I may have to cut you off so we can hear from the AGs, and then we'll come back again. So any public comments? Can someone, anybody want to say anything at this point? I don't see any hands. Oh, Ron? Okay. Ron, please.
Ron.
And get off mute, Ron. There, thank you. Ron, you're still on mute.
Press the
There you go.
button. Hey, Ron.
Good morning, Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commissioners, Oversight Coordinator, and Reentry and Diversion Oversight Specialist. My name again is Ronald Fujioshi. I've served as the Treasurer of Ohana Hopakele since May 2000. In my testimony last month, I quoted from the Bible. No one stopped me saying, this is the United States of America where there's a separation of church and state. So today I want to quote from Luke 4:18 and 19. I view this passage as Jesus's declaration of his mission when he quoted from the prophet Isaiah as he entered the synagogue in Nazareth. He read, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." My simple plea this morning is not to lose sight of the forest by focusing on the trees. By this, I mean the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission stated goal, or one of them, is to transform Hawaii's correctional system from a punitive model to a rehabilitative and therapeutic model. If this is the goal, please don't get too caught up in making sure every regulation is being followed, but concentrate on transforming the system into a rehabilitative and therapeutic one. I'm sure you have all read the literature, such as Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness, which became a bestseller. And this dictates how the United States' original sin, that of racism, has morphed into the prison system. You've also read Ruth Gilmore Wilson's The Golden Gulag, Prison Surplus Crises and Opposition in Globalization, California, the study of the prison system in California that shows the building of prisons came at a time when violent crimes were on the decrease. Some of you have visited Norway and elsewhere where models of rehabilitation are being followed. Countless groups like the Vera Institute of Justice, where Cara Company last worked, have provided hundreds of documents that have shown that prisons based on punishment do not work. At present, the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission come with its best, the best experience and of the highest caliber. Your staff come with excellent qualifications. For example, your chair, Mark Kavika Patterson, has done what was unheard of. He has eliminated all female juveniles from the Kawailoa Youth and Family Wellness Center. Two of you are retired judges with long service records. You can devise ways to divert those who will be further harmed by being incarcerated into programs that will be more beneficial and rehabilitative. Three of you have had long careers in the Department of Public Safety. You know the prison system almost completely. The present director of the Department of Public Safety is quoted in the Hawaii Tribune Herald as saying at the Going Home Reentry and Public Safe Restoration Summit on August 23, 2023, this is an ideal time for us to embrace the paradigm shift needed to affect positive change in the criminal justice system. Our vision is to promote community safety while focusing on rehabilitation and ensure a successful reintegration back into the community. Now is a good time. There are many good experimental projects that have called their programs Pu'uhonua, modeled after the Hawaiian cities of refuge. In Waimanalo, in Waianae, at Pu'uhuluhulu on the slopes of Mauna Kea, Mark Patterson's program, the program of the Pu'a Foundation, etc. I don't know why your meetings have stopped rotating to the different islands. Is it because of the budget cut? You have been appointed by the top officials here in Hawaii and have their support. I appeal to you to allow us, the public, to be your community partners in supporting you in your goal to transform the prison system from a punitive model to a rehabilitative and therapeutic one. Almost every Kama'aina family has had someone incarcerated at one time or another, or is working in the system. I'm sure all of these people would support your goal of transforming the correctional system. Mahalo for allowing me to testify.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, at this point, we're going to go into executive session to be briefed by the Department of the Attorney General on a case that involves the Women's Community Correctional Center. So I make a motion to go into executive session to receive a debriefing from the Attorney General's office on Riaz v. Tanaka pursuant to section 92-5A4 Hawaii Revised Statutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you.
I have some testimony if it's okay. Sorry, I couldn't click the buttons fast enough.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay, mahalo. My name is Jess Haney, also with Ohana Ho'opakele, calling in from Hilo. I'm calling from the public library, so just want to reiterate, it would be really great if y'all could come over to the other islands so that we're not isolated in our meeting and access to you. But thank you for the Zoom consistency. it is as easy as digital is. So just a couple questions, wondering on the Tommy Johnson's report on the conversion of the department. Will there be two separate budgets for corrections and rehabilitation? Heard that there might be some co-leadership. So wondering if we can learn that, and if that's something that we could discuss as they're making their transition, because I think as we hear over and over the needs for programming, for healthcare resources, for it'll be interesting to see how those things are budgeted and actually prioritized. And then
Yes, it appears that Tommy has left the meeting, so we can pose this question to him and to ask him to respond next month.
October.
wonderful, thank you so much.
Thank
And then
you.
another question for your, I think it's for your surveys that you said you would put together, some of your data work. Or this is a question if you could share with us, do you know how many kapuna or elders are in the Hawaii prisons and jails? I've tried to do research, it's hard to find numbers. The most recent information I can find is from some news articles. So if you could share that, or if that's something that is found through your new data website or could be built in, that would be really wonderful.
Kristen can get that information from the department's information system. And if you could write that up and post it.
Well, we're gonna, so with the conversation about that data page that we're gonna do, like, that's gonna also be a part of that. So we wanna get the information out there about the demographics of those who are in custody. So not just age, but also race, gender, ethnicity, you know, kind of give you a breakdown.
So how long before that will happen?
We're hoping to launch next month.
Okay,
Yeah, so we're hoping to present on that at the next commission meeting.
okay, Jess,
Great, thank you.
thank you.
And then the last point I just want to make is with this going ahead for the OCCC replacement project funds and the KCCC project, I just want to note that Department of Public Safety was directed to collaborate with Ohana Ho'opakele and Department of Land and Natural Resources on building one Pu'uhonua, which would be a reentry facility that if there was one built on every island, could be 100 people per island. So, you know, as he's saying, I can't go from having 1,100 people down to 600. There actually are ways that we could be reprioritizing the building projects, which have the values or have the goals in mind of reducing the number of people inside. So I am curious how these priorities are come up with, and we do seek the support of the commission in championing priorities for reentry facilities, and the Pu'uhonua is one that is just sitting on the burner waiting. And then the last point is on the HCR 23 task force. Thank you so much for having that community hearing. I think that we might find other ways to talk to community members in between on the topic, but it was really great to be in the room. Thank you for hosting that. We heard resounding testimony from community members from all different points of view talking about the harms of these minimum sentences. And there was a question of guiding values and goals that came up, and I wonder, both a comment and I think like a long-term question is like, will you be coming up with guiding values and goals? Like, what's your sale plan? Because we hear that there seem to be differences in how the paroling authority and Department of Public Safety like measure things. And so could this be a chance to have alignment on what the purpose of this is? I hear like one of the goals is to get it to something that works and to look at other models that work better. So could we articulate what working means? Because we have one side of public safety saying that their responsibility is babysitting, and then this commission saying that the responsibility is rehabilitation and reducing the number of people inside. So if there could be goals or some clear criteria about how you're assessing what works for the sentencing, that would be really wonderful for the public to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
All right.
Okay. We have a motion on the table already because it's been, the motion's been made and seconded. So at this point, is there any discussion on the motion that we go into executive session?
Nope. Call the question.
So all those in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, at this point, we're going into executive session. We will reconvene after the executive session and make some brief comments and then end the meeting.
those kids
And
should
then
stay.
Ted, we're gonna
Waiting until section four.
So we're unmuted? Okay. We just completed the briefing on the Riaz v. Tanaka case at the Women's Community Correctional Center from 1915. And the debriefing was provided by Karen Inagaki and Skylar Cruz of the Department of the Attorney General. And now we'll return to the agenda. Were there any more public comments before we end? Okay, if not, our next meeting, first of all, this afternoon, we were going to the Women's Community, the Women's Community Correctional Center for a tour. Our next meeting will be Thursday, October 19th. And at that time, after the meeting, we will conduct a tour of the Halava Correctional Facility. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved in second for adjournment. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your participation.